Christian persecution, it's a real thing and it's happening in Canada. I couldn't believe it myself doing research for this show. I'm so excited to talk to Pastor Phil. But I was blown away as I started doing more research into what's happening for Christians, not just here in Canada, but all around the world. And I guess more unbelievably here in Canada, because Canada's always been a place where people of all different religious beliefs, people of different walks have come to Canada because it's a free country. So where you could practice your religion, you could practice your faith, and you never had to worry about being persecuted, especially from our own government. But the Church of God, Pastor Henry Hildebrandt, he's a Mennonite pastor in Aylmer, Ontario. He was arrested during the lockdowns, facing over $100,000 in charges and fines. The famous street pastor, Arthur Pawlowski, he was arrested several times in Calgary, Alberta. Pastor Tim Stevens from the Baptist Church, also in Calgary, arrested. And here, in my hometown of St. John, New Brunswick, our pastor here, Pastor Phil Hutchings of his Tabernacle, spent 7 days in jail for holding church service. We're going to talk to Pastor Phil today. You can see him on the screen. If you're listening to the podcast, you obviously can't see him, but you'll be able to go and subscribe to our channel. In fact, if you just go onto YouTube and go Canadian Unity Project, you can catch these shows live. You can subscribe to my Facebook. And by the way, if you're not a member of the Canadian Unity Project, go ahead and become a member. It's patreon.com/Canadian Unity Project. Not only do you support this show and support our ability to travel around, do interviews, and connect with amazing Canadians and people bringing amazing work to the world, but you're also going to get exclusive content on self-sufficiency. Includes instructions on growing your own food. This month's lesson was all about growing your own sprouts. Recipes. We've got a beautiful potato soup recipe. Under $10, you can feed up to 8 people, depending how much you eat. You know, a little bit bigger family, you might eat a little bit more. Maybe you get 4, maybe you get 2, depending how big those bowls of soup are for you. But the point is that the reality is Canada is going through tough times, and it's going to go through harder times for most people. But we believe those who are on the right side of God, are on the right side of justice, and who live in harmony and who educate themselves, they're going to prosper. We've got exclusive content on money, mindset, and management, Canadian history and politics, so you can know more about our current system, as well as exploring other systems that might be beneficial for us as Canadians to look into, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. So go to patreon.com/Canadian Unity Project. You can become a member for as little as $5. Please welcome to the show, Pastor Phil Hutchings from his Tabernacle. Pastor Phil, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Nick. Good to see you and all the viewers. Love you, folks.
We love you too. You've been doing incredible work. I mean, that's a matter of perspective. I think you've been doing incredible work. Some members in our community don't think you've been doing incredible work. Let's start with you spending 7 days in jail.
Right.
Tell us what happened. Why did you go to jail for 7 days? Like, what from your perspective?
Yeah, it's kind of surreal. I appreciate, folks that comment on your posts that, feel like they have the perspective and the complete picture of everything that took place. But, if you're pulling everything from CBC, all you're getting is a parody. You're not getting any actual news because the courts controlled the information that went out. So I don't think people even understood that the judge actually typed out and handed the media the content for them to report. I don't know if people understood that. Let me say this. Let me say this. When we first went into court, because people, it feels like just crazy is on a new, just on another level these last 2 years, and people are just emotionally hot out of the gate and just can't seem to have a really good critical conversation with folks. But if we could just take time to just, have a cup of coffee and just, communicate, that's a great thing for sure. But so what people don't realize, because everyone talks about how I signed this paper, I signed this agreement, I signed this paper, and he broke it. I signed. Let me just clear the air and land the plane once and for all. If people can just listen very clearly on what took place. I had church, and I did not make people show their vax passport. I refuse to do that.
Right.
I refuse to enforce people to wear a mask, which you didn't have to begin with. You just had to provide, but for some reason they wanted you to enforce it. So, I welcome folks who wanted to wear masks or didn't wear a mask in church, and I kept it open. If the liquor store can stay open, church is going to stay open. If there's ever a time the church needed to stay open, it was through COVID. And so we provide a place for hope for folks to get, get that seed of hope planted and stir their faith in a crazy time. So we definitely, if there was ever a time for pastors to stay open, it was through COVID. And they didn't like that, so they brought me into court, and the judge had something in print for me to sign. And what we said was, I have no legal representation. I have no. They took me, Nick. They took me, made me go. I had my daughter's. I had Victoria's, my daughter's birthday party, and they showed up at my door serving me papers, telling me I had to go in a couple hours.
That's crazy.
At my home, and so I dropped my daughter's birthday party and hid to the court because I didn't understand what was going on. It's unbelievable the things that took place, and people have no grasp, sadly, of what really took place. I'm amazed at how many people were, ate off of CBC's plate. It's unbelievable to me. But what I went in, and I said to the judge very gracefully, I was kind, I wasn't rude. I just said, we have no legal representation. He said, I'm going to leave this room. When I come back, let's see those papers signed. Let's have an agreement. And so he left, and I said, I'm not signing. I have no lawyer. I'm not just signing stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a right to natural legal, all the terms. Anyway, I'm trying to cut through here. He comes back and he says, I want an agreement signed. And you could tell something was going to happen if I didn't sign anything. Right. He said, I'm going to leave the room again. And I again said, and it's on record, I have no legal representation. I have no lawyer. And so he left, and I realized something's going to happen here negatively. And he's going to put a hammer down on me. So I looked at the agreement, and it said I would make reasonable efforts. Well, I thought that's not bad, because I have no problem making reasonable efforts. I'll put up signs, mask if you can, but I'm not going to enforce it, because so what I did is I put up signs, and I said, if you don't have any mask, I assume you have a medical reason. I'm not going to ask you because it's illegal. And I provided hand sanitation, and we pushed the chairs apart. We made reasonable efforts.
Yes. I don't know, because I went to church that Sunday.
Yeah. And it looked like a Mexican drug cartel going down.
It totally did.
SWAT cars.
Yeah, tons of
on Thanksgiving Sunday. This is happening in Canada.
There was tons of cop cars around. The CBC was there documenting us all going in. But you had us. There was a paper there that I remember we had to sign going in. You asked us to physical distance and all these type of things. And then it was up to the congregation to do.
Here's the thing people don't understand. They weren't looking for reasonable provisions. They wanted to make me a poster board to send a message to other pastors that, here's what's going to happen if you don't. They weren't looking for reasonable. They were looking for full, compliance, And so, for those people who say I broke, no, not at all. And it was upon coming back into these court sessions that one of those sessions, we said, well, we need, they were throwing everything out legally. they crossed so many lines just to push this COVID narrative. Legally, they just broke so many laws. People
Yes.
have no idea. They broke laws to push this junk in the church, and they were pushing hard on me because I just didn't want to bow my. And I'm not like anti-government. I'm not like bravado. I'm just going to keep my church open. People are valuable enough to keep the church open. And
Well, and I would echo what you said earlier. The fact that the liquor store can stay open, and then the church can stay open. If we can all pile into Costco,
yeah,
then we
yeah,
can pile into church. And church is a place, like you said, where people come to get hope,
right.
inspiration, and community, which is
People.
neat.
I think people needed to relax. CBC painted it like we all came together and we licked everyone.
Yeah,
People need to just calm down. We came and you know what? Yes, we did break the law. We sang because in the Bible, we are commanded to sing and give praise and thanksgiving to God. And so I we said we're going to stay open, and we're going to make reasonable efforts. We're going to try to do our best to work with them, but they didn't have any part of it. And so in waiting for a hearing, that's when the judge threw me in jail until our next court hearing. They put me away.
So sorry, I just want to catch
7 days.
I just want to catch the timeline there. So you went to you were at your daughter's birthday. They summoned you to court within hours.
Oh yeah.
You go to court. He's asking you to sign an agreement.
Yeah.
You said, "Look, I don't have legal representation,"
right.
But you could see that you were being pressured to sign
right.
this. Or
He kept leaving the room, coming back in, getting angry. Leaving the room, coming back in, getting angry. And then I looked at it. I said, "Well, you know what? It says reasonable efforts. I have no problem, but their reasonable is very different from my reasonable."
Yeah, and that's such a broad term, reasonable efforts. I mean, that's
right.
so great, of what that actually means.
The whole thing is great. And then it was just through this, song and dance, this back and forth. They just kept coming at us. And then it was one of those court hearings. I can't remember now. I was with my wife, and all of a sudden you could see there was something stirring in that courtroom because everything was already planted. Cops were already there to take me. So he already had a judgment ready. And all of a sudden here I am being put in ankle chains and cuffs and carried away and thrown into jail, wearing orange. I did find something good out of it, though. I did find I'm 6'1.5". If you look at my mugshot, I thought I was 6'2", but I'm 6'1.5".
6'1.5". That's the accurate. We now have accurate measurements of your height.
But it was kind of surreal. They put me in solitary confinement in a cement box with blankets, basically. But I'll tell you what, the folks at the correction facility were some of the best officers I think I've ever met. They were so gracious. And they were concerned about my dignity and my care. And even off the record, they kept coming up to me and saying, "We know this is wrong, and we feel really bad for you." So anyone with a head on their shoulders understood that this was craziness.
Yeah.
And then I got out, and I said, "Well, I'm not going back into the church because I'm not going to follow these unreasonable mandates." And so I knew that outdoors it was less restrictive. And so I took the church outdoors in Canadian weather.
Yeah. I know you were in full. I know because
I went shopping for my pastor suits. I mean, my church suits. I went shopping at Cabela's at Bass Pro. We were full out camo folks. It was like Duck Dynasty Church. Totally. But we went outdoors, and it was great. I mean, people were coming from all over the place. It was growing. People were coming and getting into the praise and worship, and hearing the message of hope. and so we wanted to put a roof over everybody because it, snow and the gear. So we got a commercial tent. Those drapes that flap in the wind and so we got a tent, and they came and threw us in contempt and deemed the tent indoors.
Ugh.
And wanted to now put me in jail for 90 days and fine us up to 70,000 in fines. If they thought it was a public safety issue, why wouldn't they have shut it down there?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're not concerned about public safety.
It was just all about setting an example.
For sure. So here we are wasting taxpayers' money, sitting in court, $25,000 a pop, just to get prosecution in the place, taking taxpayers' money to try to put a pastor in jail for having church in a tent. And you can't make this up. This is actually, this is real stuff. And at first I was angry. I was getting pretty angry at these folks. And then I just started feeling bad for them. You know what I mean? Like I started praying, to be in that kind of a place, to push that kind of thing forward in your own country. I was like, how low does we now see that a province will go that low? You know what I mean? I felt angry at first, but then I just felt bad for them, and I just started praying. And it's surreal. It boggles my mind, to be honest with you.
I want to ask you specifically, when you were spending the 7 days, I'm curious, what did you do with your time? Like, did you pray? Did you sing hymns? How did you keep your spirits up? Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked for a Bible.
Okay.
And
did they give you one?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
They gave me a Bible. Like I said, the folks in the jail, the officers were, the best. They were so kind, and I'm grateful for them. I would pray. I would just sing some hymns that I knew, and with and I'm not a crier, but with tears running down my eyes or my cheeks, I would sing about the goodness of God, and I knew God's hand was on this, as hard as it was. And you have 3 kids. All you're thinking about is your kids and wondering how they're making out. But I'll tell you what, I have a strong wife. She's if it wasn't for my wife, and if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for my wife and our mentors, our pastors that are in our corner, that are lifting us up in prayer and encouraging us. We have some of the finest folks that were in our corner, fighting for us. And it as hard as it was, God really used it to catapult our church. We're busting, man. It's a hustle. It's a crazy spot right now. What's going on? What God's doing at the church is amazing. We now got 10 acres of land. We're building a brand new facility. We're trying to push out what we call Eden Project, where we're going to do sustainable gardens and farming for the community. We're just so excited. You cannot shut the church down. God is not going to let the enemy outdo him, and he's only going to last so long before he begins to respond. And anything that and that's what I want to encourage viewers that are watching. They may feel the heaviness of what's taking place in the country, but let me encourage you: before there was a Justin Trudeau, there was a Jesus. And our joy and our peace doesn't have to hinge upon Ottawa. It can hang upon Jesus Christ. And I'll tell you what, just the fact that I know that God is still on the throne, I know there's still hope for Canada, and I get encouraged, just like good folks like you and people that are commenting on the stream. How can you not believe Canada's best days are right now? Some of the finest folks in Canada are watching right now on your viewership and commenting, and I know the folks that run with you too. Listen, I feel like where the enemy wanted to put a period in our nation's history, grace has come in and put a comma. I feel like Canada's best chapters are being written right now. That's why I'm all in on this thing. I believe in freedom. And I went to jail for it. Because if you could sum up God's will in one word, it would be freedom. Everywhere Jesus went, people became free. That's God, right. Let me tell you something. Anyone that has ever come to Jesus, their lives never got worse. It always got better. And now I want to encourage our listeners. If you feel heavy with what's going on in our country, let me tell you something. Don't get discouraged. This is a setback. This is a setup. I believe that Canada's finest moment is right now. And I will not go into history quiet. I'm telling you right now, we will not bow. My wife and I are all in. I mean, till death, we will not bow. We will hold the Bible. We will preach Christ. We will preach freedom. And we're not, I'm telling you, we're not going to give up. And just like folks like you. And so I know we're on the right side for sure. I'm encouraged.
Oh, absolutely. And so am I. And I've said that, throughout the political campaign and before and after. I said, what we have to do is we have to see the opportunity in this. In fact, we can look at it as God waking us up and saying, hey, there's some things that you need to look at. There's some things
Yeah,
happening in your own nation that needs to be addressed. And, I saw that there's a real blessing that COVID really woke a lot of people up to what's going on
right.
above and beyond the pandemic. Now, we know that the crooked CBC and the legacy media, they're playing into that narrative.
For sure.
And it is an atheistic agenda because it's a Marxist agenda. And Karl Marx was an atheist, but he was more, I would say, an agnostic individual, if I understand him right. He saw religion as a political function and not a way of living, right? And not to worship God. I think he saw more the religion than the relationship. And I know
Yeah,
that's
this is,
something you
and that's
talk
the thing.
about a lot.
Yeah, religion is man's attempt to get to God. But the
Right.
Bible talks about a Jesus that came to get to us.
Right.
And this has nothing to do with religion. This has everything to do with an intimate relationship with Christ. You know, Jesus never came to save a denomination or a religion. He came to save people. He loves people. For God so loved the world, for God so loved Canada that he sent Christ. You know, that's how much, love ran red that day 2,000 years ago up on that cross when Jesus hit the reset button on the whole mess. And you can listen, for folks listening, when you grab a hold of Jesus, you grab a hold of freedom. What good is freedom in this land if you're not free in your heart? And Christ can make you free. And just I'm grateful for our vets who shed their blood across land to just give our freedoms. But I'm also grateful for the blood of our Savior who gave me my freedom.
Um, Can we flash his? Okay, we've got his tabernacle.ca. Anybody watching or listening now, you can go to his tabernacle.ca. Check out what Pastor Phil is doing. The church is growing, it's expanding. The very first time I remember going to your church, you had invited me out, and I went. And first of all, I didn't realize it was the Freedom Church of the city, right? So I walked in, and I was like, all these people were like, "Oh, Nick, hello." And I'm like, "Oh, hey. Oh my goodness, these are all the Freedom people. I didn't realize this is where we all come to hang out." So I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But then I
It's the
listened to you.
church that's not ashamed to put up the Canadian flag with the cross.
Yeah, that's right. And then I heard you preach, and I said, "This guy is going to be massive," and you already are. But I was like, "This guy is going to be massive because he's bringing hope, he's bringing prosperity, he's bringing real life." Things that you can use in real life to improve your life. And I just knew it. I called it from the first time. And not that you need me to call anything, but in my mind, was like, this is going to be huge. And then watching, then we kind of joined the fight together, and we did some rallies together, and we did some things together. And then just watching, you go through all this, and then watching your church expand and I just know, I'm like, you see, it's amazing how God uses what seems to be negative, and he
Yeah,
just makes it into the most positive
right.
thing ever. What seems to
And
be a
that's the thing.
detriment
You
becomes the
nailed it.
setup.
If there's one thing I've learned uh, with God is he never ends on a bad note.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It sucked that I was in jail, but I think it shook some folks up. I mean, there's still some crazy folks. I mean, I seen some comments on your post. Some folks
Yeah.
look like they just need a hug or sing a Christmas carol. They need
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But uh, but it's like it. I think it woke folks up to realize, my God, our province went this far.
Yeah.
Whether they agree with our stance, I think just the fact that we put a pastor in jail, I think woke some folks up and said, okay, this has gone too far.
Yeah.
You know, and they realize you know, if they're coming for a church, then they have no worries for coming, you know, at something else. If they're willing to put a church out, you know, if they go that low, you know, that's, you
Well,
know,
it's like China, right? Like China is famous for that, right? Well, Christian
absolutely.
persecution in China is an all-time high in 2022,
Yeah, I know of a
right?
pastor actually that just got out. He was going to be executed, and he brought they so basically for every 3 Bibles you bring into China, I think you get a year of prison. And he brought a truckload, and so they're just going to kill him. But God
Wow.
supernaturally intervened, and that's a cool story. I should tell you sometime. I don't want to get into it here, but God intervened, and he had a supernatural breakout. A cool, very cool story. But
Um, well, we
people
know
all
because we're
around the
gonna have
world,
you back on to talk a little bit more about the religious parts of Christianity and that
absolutely.
whole thing, and we're gonna have an
I
awesome
love you.
conversation for
I
that.
love
Yeah.
getting on here, and I want to say this too
Yeah.
to all the viewers and to you, Nick and Sarah. Thank you for just being there. You know, you were there for my family, and you are the real deal. You're a man of character and integrity, and Sarah is better than you, um,
And always.
always. But I
And
love her
always.
too. Um, and you guys have been very kind when we were going through this, and a lot of the viewers too. Many folks have reached out, and I was just blown. You know, in the midst of all the crazy, there God's still moving. And you know, and I appreciate all the viewers and their love and support, and of course you folks too.
Well, we appreciate you, Pastor Phil, and Pastor Jamie, your wife. You guys are powerhouses. We love your church. We love the congregation, the family there, and the real spirit that moves through that place. I mean, every time we go, we leave, and we're like, now that just feels good. And I think that people kind of have forgotten that church is a place to go
Yeah,
and feel good and to worship and the joy that comes from that. You know, it's largely being stifled out within this largely move towards an atheistic viewpoint of life. And you see that people are going to really suffer because until the soul is fulfilled and we have that ability to worship and to praise
right,
and to be in community, you'll see that
right,
people will be turning to all kinds of vices and all kinds of things to be able
right,
to try to fill that void that they're feeling, and they don't realize that the void is God, that it's about developing that relationship. And your church is a place that I can see it. I could just feel it when you walk in, that you're like, yes, that the real spirit is here, and it's in the energy. So I want to ask you one more question just before we
no,
wrap
you
up
already
for
had enough.
tonight. You're like, no, that's
You
time to
used
cut it
enough.
off. um
Can we take another
Legal
question?
fees, are you like, I know there's been tons of support. I know people have donated all kinds of money to help you. Is there still fines or legal fees that you are facing? Like, what's next in the court aspect
Yeah,
of what's
so
going on?
right now they still are up in the air with putting me in jail for 90 days and 70,000 in fines.
Oh, that's
We have
still like on the table.
That's still on the table. Yeah, they don't even have
Oh,
a court date for it. It's absolutely insane. It's just insane. But we have a great lawyer, and we have unending funding. So we'll go as far as we need to go to fight this. Um,
amazing.
uh,
I
the,
didn't even realize that was still on the table.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, basically, we had the first judge recuse himself, and we're putting him under disciplinary review. Um,
Good.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what we need to do, is take it to them.
you
And,
do.
I've said
And
that
you know
many
what?
times. We have to
I
stop
think,
being on the defense, start on the
and I
offense,
think
take it back
people,
to them.
and I think people that wanted to be on the offense didn't have the finances.
Sure.
So God has put us in a place where the finances aren't an issue. And I
Yeah.
don't think they were expecting that. So, which is good. We got to put this in check, this system in check. And so we got that judge recused, and we got another judge recused because we brought the whole that whole hearing before the Court of Appeals, and they called that judge out for being biased, and we won our appeal.
Amazing.
And so that sends a message out to the legal community saying, listen, you can't be playing around. You need to see this. You need to throw that bias junk to the side and look through this thing properly. And so I thank the Lord for that win. That was a good win. That wasn't a win just for us. That was a win for Canada.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
That's the thing, and I've said it many times, and I'll say it now here again, that you'll go down as a Canadian hero at the end of it all, because, and I say that in all honesty, because what people don't realize, even if they are against what's going on or they feel like
right,
you didn't act responsibly
right,
through the pandemic, what I believe that people will come to realize is that because of folks like you and you and Jamie and that stood up and played the offense, you actually pushed the line again. You didn't just
right,
allow them to steamroll over, because if
right.
no one had stood up, if no church had stayed open, it's if no, like, I mean, that's the reason I got involved with politics, is because I was watching everything that was going down, and I could see the programming and the shift they were trying to push us towards. And I said, and then I thought, is nobody going to say anything? And of course, I take it as, I'm like, well, if I'm seeing it, then it's for me to do something. If it's in my awareness, then that's for
Yeah,
me. So I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say something. I'm gonna get involved. And then I met you shortly after, and then I was like, okay, there is. And so I'm super appreciative of what you did. And I truly believe you'll go down as a Canadian hero, because when this all is said and done and people look back at this 20, 30 years from now, or however long, they're going to recognize that it was folks like you who are actually willing to stand up and say no, and stand up and draw the line, that saved this country from going into totalitarian, nonsense. Like, we're still in the fight. People think, oh, Canada's lost. I'm like, Canada's not lost. I said, because we have more people standing up every single day now, more than ever before. But you guys were definitely, one of the first and on the front lines of that. And because of that, you took the big brunt, right? It's like, the first line of soldiers take the hardest hits, right?
yeah. I
And
love
so,
how some folks thought, I was using it to, I don't know, take advantage of it or something, because what person doesn't enjoy being ripped apart across media, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it when the
yeah,
CBC just nails me, like, and then
yeah,
basically turns the half the community against me.
yeah.
We
It's
just
so it's
don't we
so
just
fun.
love that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I always look forward to it. Actually, I actually mailed CBC a thank you card for their unbiased journalism with my shirt with my mugshot on it,
That's awesome.
and
Love
it
it.
was a thank you gift. But
Can Sarah, can you
it's
put up the pastor, the Save Pastor Phil from Rebel News that's on right now? I
Rebel
just want to
News has
mention
been
there's
incredible, by the way. Rebel News has been incredible, and the Democracy Fund have been abs- the Democracy Fund is helping folks that were part of the Ottawa,
okay, part of the trucker
uh,
convoy.
the trucker convoy. But even right now, because people got fined on Canada Day, remember?
Yes.
And their lawyers are on that. So these folks are awesome, awesome, a great organization, the Democracy Fund and Rebel News. Because
Nice.
people were given. I asked because you were going to give $1,000 fine if you shout, and you were going to get another $1,000 fine if it was unusual noise. So I said, "What if your shout's unusual? Is that 2,000? You know,
You have an unusual shout.
do you have an unusual shout?" I mean, it was unbelievable the things that were taking place in Ottawa. But listen to this: the Democracy Fund was on the ground. Their lawyers were on the ground, boots on the ground, and they're incredible people.
It's so amazing to see just so
Yeah,
many organizations and people come together, and we've
yeah,
met incredible people through this whole thing. We've often said, as much as we don't like what's going on, I can't help but feel gratitude because of how many great people like yourself and so many people we've met across the country. We've got
yeah,
time to spend time with, Maxime
yeah,
Bernier and many different leaders who believe and who
yeah.
are fighting the good fight. If for all of our viewers and listeners, and if you're listening to the podcast, we'll leave all these links below. Again, you can go to rebelnews.com/tags/save Pastor Phil. Again, it's flashing across the screen if you're watching, and if you're listening, it'll be in the show notes. You could go and put a few bucks towards that. Let's do
And let me
everything
say
that we
this
can.
too. I feel to say
Mm.
this, and I want people to really understand. Although we're kind of winning in the courts and things are up in the air. They don't have a court date. They haven't stopped attacking. Just understand there are more avenues in government than just through public safety. So they've been trying to put a squeeze on us in other ways. It is so corrupt, Nick. I knew.
Do you know? Can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Right now. I can't yet, but
Okay,
I will.
got it.
I know.
Yeah.
I will be able to later. I'll
Okay,
tell you
yeah, makes
outside of the podcast.
Sure, yeah.
My apologies to the viewers, but we'll tell you later. But
Yeah,
it would blow your mind if I told you stuff that they're trying to do to me right now through other avenues. It's a corrupt system, and but we'll win.
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah.
Pastor Phil, his Tabernacle Church, his website is flashing across the screen. You're listening to the podcast.
Someone commented about they're the drink it Kool-Aid kind of people. To those folks that say that, we only serve Kool-Aid on Wednesdays. So come on Wednesdays for your Kool-Aid.
Wednesday, it's the best Kool-Aid. You'll love it. It's fantastic.
People who don't know, like, I feel bad for those folks, because there's no critical thought, there's no argument. They just either call you homophobic, a cult, or a racist because they don't know how to have a dialogue. They can't critically think or have a critical conversation, so they just blurt out adjectives or verbs and I feel bad for them. I'm like, they must have a really miserable life to be that angry and vile. I just want to find them and just sing a Christmas carol or give them a hug.
Yeah, I've been duking it out with the woke left here in recent weeks, and I recognized and learned that there is no real conversation happening.
There isn't.
There's no critical thinking or conversation. It's just right. They're just angry, and it's like, why are you angry? We're bringing up some valid points, that in a free society could be talked about and debated about. Right? I'm not saying that I know it all, but I'm saying let's open up the debate. With some of the things that are going on, especially when it comes to our children and the types of philosophies and ideologies that they're pushing on our kids, separating parents from their kids, having dance parties, specifically pride dance parties, and saying no parents allowed for the safety of the children. And I'm like, so I'm bringing these issues up and just getting slammed by the woke left. You're a bigot. You're a this, that. I was like, no, these are actual legitimate concerns. And I really believe in 10, 20 years, you're going to see major fallout from all of this that's going on. Anyways, that's a whole nother show. And just to shout out Rebel News and yourself, because indirectly you gave me this opportunity, because we came out to an event a few weeks ago and Rebel News was there.
Sarah is crazy with Ultimate Frisbee. She makes me nervous.
She's an Ultimate Frisbee champ for sure. I was sweating because I didn't expect to play anything. I was coming hello. I was in my jeans and t-shirt and just sweating it out on the Ultimate Frisbee field there. But we had a great time, and going in there, I got an interview with Rebel News talking about Marxism and the interaction with Dominic Carty and a few different things, and the CBC and their story time reporting, how making me look out to be again like a bigot and all this type of thing. They just released that interview on their channel yesterday, and I seen it's doing really well. But I'm just happy that folks are.
Hey, Carol, love you, Carol.
I'm just happy that folks are really waking up, and we've got so many great people around us. And I'll tell you something. I'll just say this last thing. As much as I've gotten a ton of hate mail, I've gotten more messages of support than I have of hate. And I think I always remind myself that and say, you know what? More people are waking up. I just got a message today, just somebody saying, thank you so much for speaking out, because I didn't realize all of these things that were happening in our school system. So we have lots of work to do, but good. It's like you said, Canada's best days are ahead. And I truly believe that 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Love you guys.
Awesome. All right. Love you too. I was about to call you Dr. Phil. Love you too, Pastor Phil. Everybody go check out his church. If you're in St. John or you're traveling to St. John, do yourself a favor. Go check out his Tabernacle. It is a blast. And these guys know how to do it big. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of the Nicholas Pereira Show.